The California sun always carries a searing heat, much like Marcus White's sweet words, warm to the heart when first heard, but leaving only a burning sting in hindsight. I sat at the oak dining table in the kitchen, my fingertips brushing the sunflower Lily had painted yesterday. She'd pressed the crayon so hard that the wax had flaked off, just like my 10-year marriage. I'd always tried so hard to hold it together, but it had long been worn full of holes. "Honey," Agnes was just grumbling casually, "don't take it to heart." Marcus wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. His cologne, mixed with the scent of cigar smoke, was a fragrance I'd once been obsessed with, but now it only made my stomach churn. I didn't turn around, my gaze fixed on the unwashed coffee mug in the sink. Before my mother-in-law Agnes had slammed the door and left that morning, she deliberately smashed it on the countertop, splattering brown stains everywhere, just like the humiliation she heaped on me, never bothering with decorum. Casually grumbling, I pried his hands off me, my voice trembling. She called me an Eastern European refugee who stole white people's wealth, and said Lily's curly hair is a genetic defect. Is that just casual grumbling? Marcus's eyes flickered, and he reached for the fountain pen in his suit jacket, a Mont Blanc, his nervous habit whenever he wanted to avoid a problem. Mom's getting on in years, and her views are old-fashioned. He avoided my gaze. I'll get promoted to partner next month, and then we'll move to Beverly Hills, far away from her. He'd been saying that for 3 years, ever since Lily started kindergarten until she entered elementary school. Yet we still lived in the old house in Pasadena, just 3 blocks away from Agnes and Richard. The sound of a key turning in the porch lock made me fall silent immediately. Agnes's high heels clicked against the floor, thudding like horse hooves and sending a flutter of anxiety through my chest. "Elena, where's my blood pressure medication?" She didn't take off her sunglasses, sizing me up through the lenses. "Are you picking up Lily in this ragged thing? Don't let the teachers think the Whites married a cleaning lady." I clenched the edge of my apron, silk, bought with my first paycheck, embroidered with the sunflowers Lily loved. "It's silk, Mom," I explained quietly. Agnes scoffed, pulling a pill bottle out of her crocodile skin handbag and shaking it. "Don't play word games with me. Eastern European women are experts at playing the victim. If your father's company weren't still useful for Marcus's career, do you think Richard would have agreed to this marriage?" A cough echoed from the stairs, and my father-in-law Richard descended in his silk robe, clutching a financial newspaper. "Elena," he slammed the paper on the table, the front page headline glaringly obvious, "Voskova Construction faces cash flow crisis. Your father came asking me for a loan shark again yesterday. I'm warning you, don't let him drag the Whites down with him. That's my father's company, not garbage." I stood up abruptly, the chair legs scraping against the floor with a shrill sound. Marcus grabbed me at once, his tone urgent. "Elena, have you lost your mind? Dad's only thinking of us." Richard sneered, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. "Thinking of you? When your father's company goes bankrupt, you won't even be able to keep this house. Let me tell you, not a single cent of the Whites' wealth will go to an outsider. I'm not an outsider. I'm Marcus's wife, Lily's mother." My voice cracked with tears. Agnes stepped forward, jabbing my forehead with her red-painted fingernail. "Wife? You're nothing but a baby-making tool for our family. If you hadn't given birth to Lily, Marcus would have married the senator's daughter long ago." When I picked Lily up from school that afternoon, my daughter threw her arms around my neck and cried. "Mom, the kids called me a mixed-race bastard, and said you're a bad person." I knelt down, wiping the tears from her face, and held up the sunflower painting. "Lily, look at this sunflower. No matter the wind or rain, it always faces the sun. We will too, okay?" Lily nodded, half understanding, her small hand clinging tightly to the hem of my clothes. I'd thought no matter how hard life got, as long as I held on to Lily and my father's company, I could get through it. Until that Friday night, when Marcus said he was going on a business trip to New York, but I found a Santa Monica hotel key card in his suit pocket. Scrawled on the back was a string of numbers, his birthday. I didn't call him, or tell anyone. I drove to Santa Monica and waited in the hotel parking lot until 2 a.m. When Marcus walked out of the elevator with a blonde woman in his arms, my blood seemed to freeze in my veins. I knew her. She was an intern at Richard's company, and had dined at our house just last month. I didn't rush up to confront them. I just sat in the car, watching them embrace and vanish into the night. Then my phone rang. It was the hospital. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold it. "Is this Lily White's mother?" The nurse's voice pierced my ears like a needle. "Your daughter has been in a car accident. She's in emergency surgery, please come at once." When I arrived at the hospital, the operating room light was still on. Marcus was there too, his face ashen, lipstick stains still on his suit. "Honey, I'm so sorry, I had no idea this would happen." He tried to hug me, but I pushed him away. Why was Lily crossing the road at that time? I stared into his eyes. "Didn't you say you'd send the driver to pick her up?" Marcus's eyes darted away. "The driver had an emergency. I told him to take care of it first." Agnes and Richard arrived soon after. Agnes burst into loud wails the moment she walked in. "My poor granddaughter, why did fate have to be so cruel?" Richard, however, frowned and pulled the doctor aside to whisper, looking less like a concerned grandfather and more like someone assessing a loss. The surgery lasted 5 hours, and in the end, it was a failure. When the doctor said, "I'm sorry," I collapsed to the floor, feeling the entire world crumble around me. Marcus held me and cried, but I had no tears left. I looked at him, and suddenly he felt like a stranger, the man who'd helped me translate documents when I first came to America, unable to speak the language, who'd peeled me an apple every day when I was pregnant with Lily, who'd promised to protect me forever when Agnes tormented me. Now, his embrace reeked of lies. When Lily's coffin was closed, I reached out to grab it, only to touch cold wood. The black roses from the funeral still sat in the living room when Marcus began tossing, "I'm sorry," around every day, but he couldn't even get Lily's favorite strawberry pudding right, bringing blueberry instead. He'd never remembered these small things, not my nut allergy, not our wedding anniversary. He moved back into the master bedroom, and at night tried to hold me, but I flinched away as if burned. His cedar cologne was long gone, replaced by a cloying feminine perfume, the same scent that had lingered in the Santa Monica hotel hallway. A week later, my father's company declared bankruptcy. Debt collectors ambushed him outside his office, shoving the 70-year-old man to the ground in front of cameras. Agnes sent the video to Marcus as a joke. "Look at that old fool, so pathetic in the end." My hands shook so hard I could barely take the phone from Marcus. He just shrugged it off. "Mom's just blunt. Don't work yourself up." He didn't mention that 2 of those debt collectors were security guards from Richard's company. I was mending the broken arm of Lily's doll when I got the call about my father's stroke. Marcus was in a meeting. It took 7 calls before he answered, his voice brimming with impatience. "I'm in a meeting with partners, can't this wait?" When I rushed to the hospital, I saw nurses wheeling my father into the ICU, while the Whites sat on the corridor bench eating sandwiches. Agnes tossed her tuna sandwich wrapper on the floor, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. "The doctor says it'll cost a fortune. I'm telling you now, Elena, we can't touch the White family's accounts. That's for Marcus's future." Richard pored over my father's financial statements, scribbling notes with his pen. "Voskova still has a few unmortgaged properties. We need to transfer them to Marcus quickly, before the creditors take them." I stood before them, my coat still stained with my father's vomit, but they didn't even glance up. I stayed at the hospital all night, but Marcus left at 10 p.m., claiming he had a client meeting the next day. Before he left, he shoved a credit card at me. buy yourself new clothes. Stop looking like a mourning servant. The day after my father was out of danger, Agnes showed up at the hospital with a basket of moldy fruit, ostensibly to visit, but actually to talk about divorce. She sat on the stairwell outside the ward, her high heels tapping loudly on the steps. Elena, you're a bottomless pit now. Marcus is meeting the senator's daughter soon, you'll embarrass him looking like this. She pulled a divorce agreement from her bag, stating I would voluntarily give up all assets. Sign it. Richard said we'll give you $100,000 in compensation, enough to hire a nurse for that old man for a few months. I stared at the word, voluntarily, and burst out laughing, tears streaming down my face. Just then, Richard arrived, holding an insurance policy, the accident insurance I'd bought for Lily, with me as the beneficiary. We need to change the beneficiary, he said, adjusting his glasses, his eyes as cold as a snake's. Lily was a white, her insurance payout belongs to us. Insurance payout? I clutched the policy, my knuckles white. You never cared about Lily's death, only how much money she could get you, did you? Richard's face darkened. He turned to leave, but I lunged forward and grabbed his sleeve. Marcus said he sent the driver to pick Lily up, so why wasn't the driver there? Where were you that afternoon? He wrenched his arm free, a button popping off his cuff and falling to the floor. How would I know? That kid ran out on her own, you deliberately sent the driver away. I shouted, triggering a shrill alarm from the monitors in the ward. Panicked, Richard lowered his voice. If your father hadn't been so stubborn, refusing to hand over the company's shares, this never would have happened. Before he could finish, Marcus pulled him away. Marcus stood between us, his tone urgent. Elena, are you crazy? Dad's old, don't hound him. I looked at the man in front of me, his tie askew, coffee stains on his shirt collar. He was unrecognizable from the young man who'd carried my luggage at the airport, vowing to protect me for life. In that moment, the last flicker of warmth in my heart went out completely, leaving only cold, dead ash. I knew, Lily's death was no accident. This family's hands were stained with my daughter's blood. I began to investigate secretly. I talked to Lily's teacher, who told me that on the day of the accident, Lily had run across the road on her own. She'd wanted to buy a sunflower bouquet from the shop opposite, a surprise for me, since sunflowers were my favorite. I tracked down a witness to the crash, who described the hit-and-run vehicle as a black Mercedes that had fled the scene immediately. I remembered Richard owned a black Mercedes, exactly the model the witness had described. When Richard was out, I snuck into his garage. In the corner, I found a broken children's watch, the birthday gift I'd given Lily, engraved with her name on the strap. I took the watch to Marcus. His face turned deathly pale the moment he saw it. Isn't this Lily's watch? How did it get in Dad's garage? His attempts to feign ignorance were full of holes. You told the driver not to pick up Lily, didn't you? I stared him down. It was you people did this to her on purpose. Marcus finally broke down. He dropped to his knees, sobbing as he spilled the truth. Richard had always resented my father's company, believing my father had taken advantage of the whites. When my father's business fell into crisis, Richard not only refused to help, he'd conspired with Marcus to delay the driver, hoping to threaten my father into surrendering his shares. That day, Richard had been driving his Mercedes to a business meeting when he accidentally hit Lily, who'd run out suddenly. Terrified of being held responsible, he'd fled the scene. I didn't mean it, Elena, I swear I didn't. Marcus clung to my legs. I just wanted to help Dad get the shares. I never thought it would kill Lily. Forgive me, please. I looked at him and suddenly laughed, tears streaming down my face. Forgive you? I knelt down, gripping his chin. Marcus, you're just as much a monster as your parents. From that day on, I stopped being silent. I knew I had to avenge Lily and clear my father's name. I began gathering evidence against the Whites, proof of Richard's embezzlement, photos of Marcus's affair, records of Agnes's tax evasion. I'd studied law once, before giving up my career for Marcus. Now, I would use that knowledge to make them pay. First, I found Richard's chief financial officer, an old subordinate of my father's, who'd long resented Richard's misconduct. With my persuasion, he handed over evidence of Richard's embezzlement. I submitted it anonymously to the FBI. Soon after, Richard was taken in for questioning. Agnes panicked after Richard's arrest. She began selling off the family's assets, planning to flee with the money. I'd anticipated this, and contacted the IRS in advance. When Agnes arrived at the airport with her passport, she was detained by tax agents. Her tax evasion amounted to millions of dollars, and prison awaited her. Finally, there was Marcus. I sent his company both the photos of his affair and evidence of his involvement in the embezzlement. The board held an emergency meeting, revoking his partnership and firing him. Jobless and disgraced, Marcus became a pariah. He came to me, dropping to his knees and begging for forgiveness. "I know I was wrong," he sobbed. "Can we start over?" "Start over?" I looked at him, my eyes cold. "Can Lily come back to life? Can my father's company be restored? Can everything you destroyed be made right again?" Marcus had no answer, only more sobs. "Marcus," I knelt down, meeting his gaze. "You, like your parents, deserve to pay for what you did." I handed over evidence of Marcus's role in Lily's death to the police. Though he hadn't been the one driving, his deliberate delay in sending the driver had indirectly caused the accident, making him legally liable. When the police arrested him, his eyes were filled with remorse and despair as he looked at me. The Whites got exactly what they deserved. Richard was sentenced to 10 years in prison for embezzlement, Agnes got 5 years for tax evasion, Marcus received 3 years for indirect intentional homicide. I sold the old house in Pasadena, using the money to hire the best nurse for my father, then moved with him to Seattle. Seattle rains often, nothing like the sunny California I'd left behind, but I loved it here. I got a job as a lawyer again, busy but fulfilled. In my free time, I took my father for walks in the park, telling him stories of Lily's childhood. I planted a field of sunflowers in the yard. When they bloomed, I could almost feel Lily beside me, smiling. One day, in the sunflower field, I met a little girl, curly-haired just like Lily's, holding a drawing of a sunflower. "Do you like sunflowers too, ma'am?" she asked, smiling. "Yes," I knelt down, brushing her hair. "Because sunflowers stand for hope." The wind swept through the field, making the sunflowers sway gently. I knew Lily was watching over me from heaven, wanting me to live well. I would carry her hope with me, moving forward bravely, just like the sunflowers, always turning toward the light.